as one of the most consequential bilateral relationships in the Asia-Pacific region. South Korea-U.S. cooperation will continue to be crucial in shaping the future regional order. With a new president-elect in Washington, South Korea, and how can South Korea and U.S. more effectively coordinate on various issues from North Korea, China, and the Asia-Pacific region? As Biden-Harris team put together a group of experts on foreign policy, economy, security, and healthcare, officials here in South Korea are also moving quickly to get on the right foot with their important ally. I have here with me a special advisor to the South Korean president on foreign policy and national security, Dr. Chung-in. Dr. Moon, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
Now, President Moon Jae-in and President-elect Joe Biden held their first official phone calls earlier today. I'm sure you've been advising the president on various levels. What are your overall thoughts on their first conversation? And the two reportedly agreed that they will meet at an early date after January 20th, 2021. And when are we looking at exactly?
It will be very difficult to tell when it will be held. First of all, the Biden administration should be inaugurated smoothly, but given current situation in the United States, we cannot predict about the smooth, the inauguration of President-elect Biden administration. But after that, United States should set up overall, the cabinet, and etc. Then we can tell when we can hold meeting. It is better to have an early meeting, but we should wait and see what would be the situation in the United States.
We got a readout both from the nation's top office here in Seoul as well as from the transition team over in Washington. It seems like the general mood between President Moon and President-elect Joe Biden was amicable. What did you make out of it?
I think it's very, very encouraging, and I would say that the President Moon Jae-in would have a very good chemistry with President-elect Biden, and in terms of value and ideological orientations, they're very similar. Even in terms of policy, they cherish the same goal, and therefore I don't see any problem with President Moon Jae-in working with President-elect Biden. As predicted, they emphasized the importance of allocate-U.S. alliance, and also they emphasized the importance of cooperation in the field of pandemic, climate change, and other common concerns of two leaders. Therefore, I do not see any problem between the two leaders.
Right, so as for our alliance, we're not too worried about that because they're both very committed to strengthening the ROK-US alliance. However, there are speculations that the Biden administration may want to restart the stalled U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises. Now, how will the Moon administration respond to such a proposal, should there be one from the Biden administration?
As to the joint military exercise and training, it is because of the pandemic. There has been delayed of the joint military exercise and training. Therefore, if pandemic situation get better, and then there will be resumption of joint military exercise and training. Particularly, South Korean government wanted to have a transfer of wartime operational control, while President Moon Jae-in serves as an incumbent president. Therefore, the Moon Jae-in government is aiming at the transfer of wartime operational control by May 2022. But that being the case, then the U.S. and South Korea should conduct a joint military exercise and training. In that way, we can satisfy the set of conditions agreed between Washington and Seoul. Therefore, when you talk about the transfer of wartime operational control, both sides have agreed to go through 3 stages: initial operation capability, and then full operation capability, and full mission capability. Once those 3 conditions are met, then there will be transfer of wartime operational control from the U.S. to South Korea. We satisfied the first initial operation capability, but we are in the middle of satisfying, full operation capability. But as to the full mission capability, we should satisfy additional conditions. Therefore, it may not be easy to transfer wartime operational control during the President Moon Jae-in's tenure, but we are hoping that they would be transferred.
Many here believe that the special measures agreement will be more of a smooth sailing under the Biden administration than when Mr. Trump was in office. Many believe that there will be a 13% increase, which is reasonable, about $1 billion increase per year. Do you agree with that?
That is my understanding, that the South Korea proposed a 13% increase, but the Trump administration turned it down, and there is a further stalemate in terms of settling of the defense cost sharing. But the President-elect Biden made it very clear, the United States is not going to extort South Korea, and also the United States is not going to be a kind of machinery, okay, in managing our KBS alliance. Therefore, I think that there will be much more negotiated settlement of the defense cost sharing issue. I don't see any big problem because President-elect Biden emphasized the importance of alliance, and our government is willing to discuss with the United States and for much more reasonable defense cost sharing scheme.
Now, Dr. Moon, the congratulatory tweets from world leaders are still trickling in for Mr. Biden, but already a host of urgent international affairs and international issues are begging the attention of Mr. Biden and his team. There are those, those Korean Peninsula watchers who are concerned that North Korea and Korean Peninsula issues may not take top priority on the Biden team's priority list or agenda items. One, are you worried about that? And two, do you think this will lead North Korea to launch a provocation in the early days of Mr. Biden's presidency?
If North Korea test launch ICBM or submarine launched ballistic missile, or undertakes seventh nuclear testing, that will be a disaster. Then that will give that will serve as a prelude to that. Biden administration may go back to strategic patience. Therefore, North Korea should show much more prudent attitude toward that kinds of behavior. But if North Korea shows very prudent behavior, and North Korean issue may have a more important position in the Biden administration's foreign policy agenda. And also, you got to remember one thing. Of course, President-elect Biden will pay attention to economy, climate change, okay, and those kinds of issues. Okay, but however, depending upon the South Korean government's effort, North Korean nuclear issue may become much more important for the Biden administration. Therefore, we cannot just assume that it will be sidelined by the Biden administration. But it's up to South Korean government's policy effort. It's all depend upon the North Korean posture. If North Korea is willing to go for negotiation with the United States, okay, and shows self-restrained behavior, then there is a good chance that the Biden administration pays attention to North Korean nuclear issue.
Now, staying on North Korea, President-elect Joe Biden is unlikely to take a similar approach as President Trump on North Korea in terms of summit-level diplomacy. In fact, we're expecting him to take a more of a workmanlike, a ground-level diplomacy when it comes to North Korea. During one of the presidential debates with President Trump, President-elect Biden said that when asked whether he would meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, President-elect Biden said that only on the condition that Kim Jong-un would agree on drawing down his nuclear capacity. What is the threshold? Drawing down nuclear capacity, what would that be?
I think that should be worked out, But President-elect Biden didn't really reject the idea of, summit-level talks with the North Korean leader. What he emphasized is this, President Trump types of top-down approach may not be effective Okay? Therefore, there should be some kind of combination of top-down approach and bottom-up approach. Therefore, it is very likely that Biden administration will initiate working-level talks. Okay? But that working-level talks is not just assistant secretary level talks. If that being the case, then they can go to nowhere. Therefore, go back to Clinton administration period. There was a tougher relationship between Pyongyang and Washington. Then U.S. Congress recommended the Clinton administration to appoint senior North Korean policy coordinator. And President Clinton appointed William Perry, a former Secretary of Defense, as a senior North Korean policy coordinator. And Dr. Perry initiated Perry process, which led to the first Korean summit between North and South Korea in year 2000. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I think that, President-elect Biden and his team will go through extensive policy review for Obama administration's 8 years and Trump administration's 4 years, therefore 12 years time period. And after policy review, I think President-elect Biden will come up with much more persuasive strategy, okay, that can go beyond old strategic patience strategy. And I personally hope that he would appoint a very senior level, special envoy to deal with North Korea, very senior level, like a Dr. Perry level. Mm-hmm. And then that will be some kind of eclectic approach between top-down and bottom-up approach. And then if, the special envoy, okay, let's say whether it be Wendy Sherman or, former senator, whatever, then they can visit Pyongyang and they can initiate. And I think Pyongyang will welcome that idea.
Where is South Korea in this? I mean, how will the Moon administration play a role in this to better improve relations between U.S. and North Korea so that they can work towards North Korean denuclearization? In other words, how should the Moon government coordinate with the new Biden government for North Korean denuclearization?
The President-elect Biden made it very clear that he values alliance and he will go through the extensive consultation with ally. Okay? And I hope that will take place. Then we don't have to worry about it. Then Biden administration will be in constant consultation with the Moon Jae-in government. Then we can come up with a joint strategy to deal with North Korea. But here, what is really important is the North Korean posture. Go back year 2000. At the time, Kim Dae-jung government played some kinds of facilitating role between Pyongyang and Washington. And go back 2018. Again, the Moon Jae-in government played a very important facilitating role between Pyongyang and Washington. Mm-hmm. Therefore, Pyongyang should come to Seoul, and North and South Korea should engage in very constructive dialogue with which the Moon Jae-in government can deal with the Biden government. Therefore, right now, after the Trump administration, there will be no communicado between Pyongyang and Washington. And then Pyongyang should communicate with Seoul so that we can come up with some kind of joint ideas on how to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula and how to ensure peace and security on the Korean Peninsula.
Do you think the two Koreas are in some kind of a correspondence with each other to, I suppose, discuss a new leader in Washington?
To my knowledge, no. Because now all communication networks are, suspended. The summit, so-called hotline between the two leaders now suspended. Military communication line suspended, and our Ministry of Unification and its counterpart hotline in Panmunjom is not working. There's no communication. But in early September, President Moon Jae-in sent a personal letter to Chairman Kim Jong-un, and Chairman Kim Jong-un reciprocated, mm-hmm. and that is a good sign. Then there was the killing of our fishery ministries official in the West Sea, and that really, put the brake on inter-Korean relations. But anyhow, now two leaders can have a virtual conference. Okay, even they can meet in Panmunjom as two leaders did on May 26th, 2018. Okay? They can be a very secret meeting, one-point meeting. In that way, North and South Korea should engage in meaningful dialogue.
Now, Dr. Moon, I'm sure you don't agree with this, but there are Korean Peninsula experts who argue that the state of inter-Korean relations tend to follow the relations between Washington and Pyongyang. How do you make sure that the two Koreas maintain their relations independent from North Korea-U.S. ties?
You know, North Korea regards South Korea as a part of the American team, okay? Because South Korea and the United States are allies, okay? And it is quite natural for North Korea to treat them as the same side. Therefore, it is very difficult for South Korea to play kind of mediating role between Pyongyang and Washington. However, because of the very reason that we are on the same side with the United States, North Korea should approach us and have consultation so that we can convey that message to Washington. Okay? But Pyongyang always thinks that South Korea is nothing but a puppet of Washington. Therefore, we should talk with the master, Washington. But I think it's very, very ill-conceived way of understanding our local U.S. alliance. But again, I'm emphasizing, go back to year 2000 and 2018. It was South Korea which played a key role in improving U.S. DPRK relations. And I hope that North Korea would also go through the policy review again, you know, going back to the old historical experiences so that they can come up with a much more constructive way of handling the United States.
I want to talk about the U.S.-China competition under President-elect Biden. The Obama administration began a rebalance toward Asia. How do you see a Biden administration setting itself up to deal with China?
I believe the Biden administration will be somewhat different from the Trump administration. When you talk about U.S.-China relations, there are several so-called strategic concepts. One is the concept of cooperation, okay? And then from cooperation, two countries can get into the stage of competition. Up to Trump, the United States and China have engaged in terms of cooperation and competition, okay? All of a sudden, Trump administration began to treat China as an enemy. And Secretary of State Michael Pompeo virtually declared Cold War 2.0, new Cold War, by engaging in geopolitical containment of China, economic decoupling of China, and by creating techno alliance to cope with Chinese challenge to technological supremacy. And also, Secretary Pompeo has been urging the formation of value alliance against China. That kind of policy posture created a very difficult situation for South Korea. Then, Secretary Pompeo virtually asking South Korea to take side, US or China. But we cannot take side, okay? US is our ally. Therefore, our primary attention goes to the United States. However, China is our very important strategic cooperative partner. We cannot disregard China. So many Korean businessmen and poor merchants, they rely on China. That for us, beginning of the new Cold War between Washington and Beijing would be a kind of curse. Then now go back to the Biden administration. Biden administration would avoid using the term new Cold War. It will be much more cautious in using the term containment. Of course, the Biden administration will try to deter, reshape, okay, constrain China. But the Biden administration would not go for the idea of treating China as an enemy. Therefore, I would say that the Biden administration will be using the term like a rivalry. Okay, then now you can go to the spectrum of cooperation, competition, rivalry, and enemy, right? And that is good news for us. However, as you pointed out, okay, Obama administration's rebalancing strategy, pivot to Asia strategy will be resurfacing. okay? And also, the Biden administration may not be pushing for the idea of Quad, particularly in military terms. However, the Biden administration will be reigniting TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, and our government will be happy to join it, okay? Therefore, compared with the Trump administration, we'll be in better position, but it is still premature to predict.
Last but not least, do you think the Biden administration will go back to the Trans-Pacific Partnership? And what do you advise South Korea to do if Seoul were to be offered membership?
Our government position is very clear, okay? Open, free Indo-Pacific. We welcome that idea. However, we wouldn't welcome the idea of exclusion of any actors in Asia-Pacific. Therefore, we want open, free, and inclusive. As long as the Biden administration honors the principle of inclusion in dealing with the membership. And I think our government will welcome the initiative.
And one more question that just came to my mind. What about Seoul-Tokyo relations? How do you think that will change under Biden?
Given the past experience of the Obama administration, the American government will be much more interventionist in improving Japan-South Korean ties, okay? Unlike the Trump administration. But however, it's up to Japan, because President Jae-in has been keep telling, let us do strategic cooperation, let us promote economic cooperation. But history issue, just two leaders cannot solve the problem, okay? It involves national sentiment. It takes time to heal. Therefore, just political issue cannot fix that in aged, historical issue. Therefore, the President Moon was keep telling former Prime Minister Abe, okay, let us cooperate in strategic area, economic area. As the history issues, let us take time. And also, he has been keep telling forced labor workers issue. Our Supreme Court made a verdict. We have a separation of power among executive, legislative, and judiciary branches. President of the Republic of Korea cannot override Supreme Court decision. But the Japanese side has been keep saying that South Korea, you got to honor international law. Okay, 1965 normalization treaty should supersede Supreme Court decision. But that is not the way democracy works in South Korea. That I hope that Prime Minister Suga and President Moon Jae-in would sit together and have a much more candid exchange of opinions to solve the problem. Then there will be a way to improve Japan-South Korea relations.
Hopefully we'll have a new setting, a reset with new leaders in Japan and in the United States as well. All right, well, thank you so much for your time today. Dr. Moon Chung-in, Special Advisor to the South Korean President on Foreign Affairs and National Security. Thank you so much. We always appreciate your expertise and eloquence, but especially your kind heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.